Top 5 Japanese sports cars, rumored to return in 2026. If you grew up flipping through road and track magazines in the 90s and circling the Japanese sports cars you swore you would own someday, you might want to sit down for this one. There are some very credible rumors circulating right now about 5 legendary Japanese nameplates potentially making a comeback around 2026, and I want to walk you through exactly what we know, what we do not know, and whether any of it is actually worth getting excited about. Before we dive in, if you enjoy straightforward car talk without all the hype and clickbait, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because it really does help us keep making these videos. Alright, let us get into it. Number 5. Toyota GR Celica. I put this one first because of all the cars on this list, it actually has the most concrete evidence behind it. Toyota executives have gone on record confirming that the Celica nameplate is returning, which puts it a step ahead of most of the other rumors we will talk about today. For those of you who remember the Celica from back in the day, you know this car has a long history stretching all the way back to 1970. The early RA20 coupes were handsome little rear-wheel drive machines that gave Datsun a real run for its money on showroom floors. Then, in the late 80s and early 90s, the GT4 variants showed up with turbocharged all-wheel drive setups and went on to win multiple World Rally Championships with drivers like Carlos Sainz and Juha Kankkunen behind the wheel. The final generation, the ZZT231 that ran from 1999 to 2006, was a lighter front-wheel drive car that never quite got the respect it deserved in the United States. But it sold well in Japan and Europe and aged surprisingly gracefully. What we are hearing now is that the new GR Celica will likely sit on a modified version of the GAC platform that underpins the current GR Corolla. According to reports from Japanese automotive press, Toyota's Gazoo Racing division is looking at a turbocharged 3-cylinder or possibly a 4-cylinder setup with all-wheel drive, which would make it a genuine spiritual successor to those old GT4 rally cars rather than just a badge exercise. The exact power figures are unclear at this point, but if the GR Corolla's 300 horsepower output is any indication, we could be looking at something in that neighborhood. What I find genuinely interesting is that Toyota seems committed to keeping this car relatively compact and affordable, which is exactly what the Celica was always supposed to be. It was never meant to compete with the Supra. It was the sports car you could actually drive to work every day without your back killing you or your wallet emptying out at the gas station. If Toyota prices this thing somewhere in the mid-30,000s when it arrives, I think they will have a real hit on their hands. The timeline is a little fuzzy, but most industry insiders are pointing to a late 2026 reveal with dealer deliveries starting sometime in 2027. Number 4. Toyota MR2. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this one. The MR2 holds a special place in the hearts of anyone who came of age in the late 80s and early 90s. The first generation AW11 was this tiny mid-engine rear-wheel drive car that weighed barely 2,300 pounds and handled like a go-kart on a canyon road. Then the second generation SW20 came along in 1989, and suddenly Toyota had a car that looked like a Ferrari 348 from certain angles, and drove surprisingly close to one if you were brave enough to push it. The turbocharged 3S GTE engine in the Japanese market GTS put out around 245 horsepower, which in a car that light made it genuinely quick by any standard of the era. Of course, the SW20 also earned a reputation for snap oversteer that caught more than a few owners off guard, especially in the rain. Toyota killed the MR2 in 2007 after the third-generation Spider, which was a fun little convertible but never really captured the magic of the earlier cars. Since then, the used market has gone absolutely crazy. Clean SW20 turbos that you could have picked up for $5,000 in 2010 are now commanding $20,000 to $30,000 on Bring a Trailer, and they are not even the most desirable Japanese cars from that era. That kind of price appreciation tells you everything you need to know about real-world demand. As for the rumors, persistent reports from Japanese automotive journalists suggest that Toyota is exploring a revival under the GR badge, likely as a compact mid-engine sports car. There has been speculation about both a pure combustion setup and a hybrid powertrain, but given Toyota's current direction with the GR lineup, I would not be surprised to see a turbocharged four-cylinder paired with a manual transmission. The biggest question is whether Toyota will actually commit to a mid-engine layout, which is significantly more expensive to engineer and manufacture than a front-engine car. According to sources cited by Best Car magazine in Japan, a decision is expected sometime in 2025, which would put a potential reveal right around 2026 or 2027. Number 3. Honda S2000. This is the car that I think most people in our audience genuinely miss. Honda stopped building the S2000 in 2009, and the used market has been climbing steadily ever since. You can barely find a clean example with under 50,000 miles for less than $40,000 today, which is remarkable for a car that you could have picked up for 15 grand not that long ago. The reason the S2000 commands that kind of money is straightforward. Honda built something that should not have been possible at its original price point of around $32,000. The F20C engine was a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder that produced 240 horsepower and revved to an astonishing 9,000 RPM. That works out to 120 horsepower per liter without any turbocharger or supercharger, which was a production car world record when it launched in 1999. The engine did not even make its peak power until you were deep into the rev range, and when VTEC kicked in around 6,000 RPM, the whole character of the car changed noticeably. It went from a pleasant roadster to something that sounded like a race car on a straightaway. The 6-speed manual transmission was one of the best Honda has ever built, with short, precise throws that made every shift feel deliberate and satisfying. The chassis was perfectly balanced at 50-50 weight distribution, and the whole car weighed just over 2,800 pounds. It was a driver's car in the purest sense of the term, and it did not need a turbocharger or all-wheel drive or a fancy dual-clutch transmission to be exciting on a back road. Rumors of a new S2000 have been floating around for over a decade at this point, and I want to be honest with you that most of them have turned out to be nothing. However, the most recent reports are a bit more credible than what we have seen in the past. According to Japanese automotive publications, Honda is reportedly exploring a new high-revving powertrain that could use a turbocharged engine with mild hybrid assistance, still paired with a manual transmission. The challenge for Honda will be maintaining that lightweight, high-revving character while meeting modern emission standards, which is not an easy balancing act by any stretch. I think the realistic timeline for something like this is probably 2027 or 2028 rather than 2026, but if Honda shows a concept or a prototype next year, it would confirm that the project is real and moving forward. The demand is clearly there, and the used prices prove it better than any survey ever could. Number 2. Toyota GR Supra GRMN. I know some of you are going to have strong opinions about this one. The current A90 Supra has been controversial since it launched in 2019, largely because it shares so much of its platform and powertrain with the BMW Z4. The B58 inline-6 engine is a genuinely excellent motor, and the car is objectively fast and well built, but a lot of longtime Supra fans felt like it was not really a Toyota in the way the old A80 was. I understand that perspective, and I also understand the counter-argument, which is that the A90 is a fantastic sports car regardless of where the parts come from. But the GRMN version could change that conversation entirely. GRMN stands for Gazoo Racing Masters of the Nürburgring, and it is a designation Toyota reserves for cars that have been taken to their absolute performance limit. The GRMN treatment typically involves extensive weight reduction, upgraded suspension components, more aggressive aerodynamics, and a meaningful bump in power output. For the Supra GRMN, Reports from Japanese sources suggest that Toyota is looking at carbon fiber body panels, a significantly revised suspension setup tuned on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and a power output that could push well past 500 horsepower from the turbocharged inline-six. There is also strong speculation that the GRMN will be offered exclusively with a manual transmission, which would directly address one of the biggest complaints about the current car. The original A80 Supra from the 90s is one of the most iconic Japanese sports cars ever built, and its 2JZ GTE engine is practically legendary at this point. People are still building 1,000-horsepower Supras using that iron block, and clean, low-mileage examples regularly sell for over $100,000 at auction. The GRMN version of the new car would not be trying to replicate the A80, but it would be Toyota's way of proving that the Supra nameplate still deserves its place at the top of the Japanese performance hierarchy. According to multiple reports, Toyota is targeting a limited production run, which means availability will be tight and prices will likely start well above $80,000. If you are thinking about trying to get on a waiting list, 2026 is probably the year to start paying very close attention to official announcements. Number 1. The Nissan GT-R R36. I saved this for last because it is the one that matters the most to the largest number of people watching this video. The GT-R is not just another sports car for a lot of us. It is the car that got many of us interested in Japanese performance in the first place. The original R32 Skyline GT-R dominated Australian touring car racing so thoroughly in the early 90s that the organizers literally changed the rules to ban it, which is how it earned the nickname Godzilla. The R34 generation became a cultural icon in the late 90s and early 2000s, and even if you never drove one in person, you probably spent hours lapping virtual versions of Tsukuba Circuit trying to shave tenths off your lap time. Then the R35 arrived in 2007 at around $70,000 and immediately ran a 7-minute, 29-second lap at the Nürburgring, which embarrassed Porsche and Lamborghini models, costing 3 times as much. That single lap time changed the entire conversation about what a Japanese sports car could accomplish. The R35 stayed in production for 17 years, which is an almost unheard of run for a performance car. Nissan kept updating it with incremental improvements over the years, and the final Nismo versions were putting out around 600 horsepower from the hand-built twin-turbocharged VR38 DET V6. But by the end of its run, the platform was showing its age in ways that were hard to ignore. The interior felt dated compared to European rivals, the curb weight had crept up to nearly 3,900 pounds, and the competition had moved on to hybrid and electric powertrains that the R35 simply could not match on paper. Nissan officially ended R35 production in late 2024, and the automotive world has been waiting to see what comes next. What we know so far is limited but encouraging. Nissan has strongly signaled through official channels that the GT-R nameplate will continue, and industry speculation points to an entirely new platform that could incorporate a twin-turbocharged V6 with hybrid assistance. According to reports from Automotive News and Japanese trade publications, the new powertrain could produce somewhere in the range of 700 to 800 horsepower while using hybrid torque fill to improve both acceleration and fuel efficiency. There is also talk of advanced torque vectoring all-wheel drive and a completely redesigned interior that finally brings the GT-R up to modern standards in terms of technology and material quality. The biggest question mark is pricing. The final R35 Nismo models were pushing past $200,000, and if the R36 moves further up market, it risks losing the value proposition that made the original R35 such a sensation when it debuted. Nothing is officially confirmed yet, and I want to be clear about that. The exact specifications, the release date, and even the final design are all still subject to change. But Nissan knows what the GT-R means to its community, and they know that walking away from the nameplate entirely would be a mistake they would regret for decades. If the R36 arrives in 2026 or shortly after, it will be one of the most significant automotive launches of the decade. So those are the 5 Japanese sports cars that have the best chance of making a comeback around 2026. Some of them have more evidence behind them than others, and I tried to be straight with you about what is confirmed versus what is still in the rumor stage. I would love to know which of these 5 you are most excited about, or if there is a different Japanese nameplate you think I missed that deserves a spot on this list. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this video useful, consider subscribing so you do not miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.